Greetings and welcome. I'm so glad you could come in today for your private tea tasting. We have several different teas for you to try. I have small teacups that I purchased in Malaysia, and they're perfect for tasting because they are only a sip or two of each tea. I'm going to tell you about each kind of tea that we'll be tasting today. I feel the best tea taste comes from loose teas, so I purchase my teas from Tivana, and they provide great detail about each type of tea, as well as the specific tea you purchased and the brewing instructions for each tea. So we'll be following their instructions. I have several different ways of brewing loose tea. When I want to make a lot of tea, especially for iced tea, I will often use a French press, which is traditionally used for coffee, but I found it works just as well for loose tea. And I will pour the leaves into the French press, fill it up with water, let it steep for the amount of time, and then press down the French press. This is especially good for herbal teas, or if they steep for longer, it's okay. It just enhances the flavor. It doesn't tend to get bitter. So we'll start off with an herbal tea that I've made using the French press. Herbal teas are made from the best ingredients for Tivana. They can be sweet or spicy, and they tend to have something for everyone. I brew them a lot as iced teas. They're also a nice non-caffeinated option for tea. They're also nice for children as they aren't caffeinated, and for small children who you don't want to be drinking sugary juice, but they would like something other than water. Some of the fruitier herbal teas are very nice. These teas are made from ingredients so fresh you can actually eat them. With Tivana, you can see often in the bags that they have dried fruit in them, and they really are beautiful teas to look at and smell. They smell wonderful in the bag. You can keep them in a tea canister. It's preferable to keep them in a tea canister, but when you bring them home, originally they tend to come in bags. Herbal teas are a delicious source of antioxidants and vitamins. They blend well with other teas for added flavors and benefits. And today we will be tasting the Peach Tranquility herbal tea. This tea is made with peach and pineapple, as well as chamomile and lemon myrtle. The taste is fruity and citrusy and peachy. It's a lovely drink as iced tea as well as hot tea. in order to prepare this tea, you want to use 1.5 teaspoons of tea per 8 ounces of water. Heat the water just to boiling, and then steep the tea for 5 to 6 minutes. For stronger flavor, you can use more tea leaves. The ingredients include apple pieces, candied pineapple pieces, rosehip peel, peach pieces, peach flavoring, sunflower petals, lemon myrtle, and Roman chamomile. So I'll pour some from the French press, and you can try that. It's really nice. It's a light flavor, but you can definitely taste the citrus and floral undertones. Do you like that? Yes, it is lovely. Now we'll move on to our rooibos teas. I tend to make rooibos with a little tea ball. I don't feel, since it's a bark, that the tea ball tends to harm it, but because the rooibos is often in small pieces, if you don't have a very fine sieve, those pieces tend to come out into your tea. So I find that the tea ball keeps all of the pieces in. I have a square tea ball and also a round tea ball, and a heart-shaped tea ball that clips, almost like tongs. So I have in the square tea ball some rooibos. Rooibos teas are herbal infusions made from a South African red bush, and they're sometimes called red tea. There's also green rooibos tea that are just as delicious as the popular red teas. Rooibos teas are delicious iced or hot and come in a wide variety of flavors. Rooibos may support the immune system, promoting well-being. It helps promote digestion. It may provide relief from an upset stomach, and they're also naturally caffeine-free. So these are also good for children, and make nice iced teas as well. Today we're going to try what is probably my favorite tea from Tivana. It makes a wonderful iced tea, and it's called Opus Rouge Rooibos tea. You would use 1.5 teaspoons of tea per 8 ounces of water, and again heat the water just to boiling and steep for 5 to 6 minutes. You can use more leaves for a stronger flavor. And the ingredients in this are grapes, hibiscus flowers, green rooibos, grape slices, citrus peel, plum pieces, and then grape, cherry, red currant, vanilla, orange, and lemon flavoring, black currants, blackberries, red currants, morello cherries, stevia leaves, which make it naturally sweet, and vanilla pieces. So I'll pour some of this into our little tasting cup. I do have this one chilled, so you can taste it as an iced tea. Isn't that nice? I make it all the time, and children really like it because it is naturally sweet with the stevia, and it's got all of the berries in it. You can really taste the sweet and crisp grape, and then the blackberry and cranberry flavoring with a vanilla finish. It's really a lovely, lovely tea, and it creates a scarlet red hue from all the berries. So now we'll move on to some of our caffeinated teas. We'll start off with a white tea. I've made this in just one of my teapots. It's got a sieve at the end so that when you pour it, the tea leaves stay in. And white teas are appreciated by tea connoisseurs for their unmatched subtlety, complexity, natural sweetness, and delicacy. They are the least processed, so they pick the leaves and then they're steamed and dried. And these teas have very little caffeine, although they do have a slight caffeine. This is what I tend to drink when I need a little boost in the afternoon, but I don't want a lot of caffeine that will make it difficult for me to sleep. These are a delicious source of antioxidants. They may support healthy skin and complexion. They can promote detoxification and body hydration. They're low in caffeine and have approximately 1% of the caffeine in a cup of coffee. So today we're going to try the Berry Basil Blast white tea. This is also a beautiful tea with large chunks of dried fruit. And you would again use 1.5 teaspoons of tea per 8 ounces of water. But you would only heat the water to 175 degrees, so not quite boiling. And you would steep this for only 2 minutes. And again, it has a much lighter flavor because the water isn't heated to boiling and it's steeped for much less time. So the ingredients are pineapple pieces, white tea, apple pieces, hibiscus flowers, basil, orange slices, strawberry, raspberry, pineapple, blackberry, tangerine, orange, and lemon flavoring. And this is a really complex tea, although it is light, because you have the juicy blackberries and strawberries, pineapple, orange, and lemon, along with the sweet, savory basil. So it's a really unexpected flavor combination. I've already poured this one into a glass because I didn't want it to steep too long, and it's still warm. So I will share a glass of this with you. Here you go. Yes, this one is really an interesting taste. It's got the multi-berry flavor and some citrus, but then that sweet basil taste. That's so interesting. It's very uplifting with those citrus flavors as well. I think this one is a really interesting taste. Okay, and now we will move on to one of our green teas. Green teas have a delicious taste, and it can be paired with other fruits and spices, and it's a very healthy treat. Provides a lot of antioxidants. It may aid in boosting the immune system. It can also help maintain a healthy blood sugar level, and it contains 5 to 10% of the caffeine in a cup of coffee. So for this one, we're going to have the Jasmine Dragon Phoenix Pearls. These are little rolled pearls. They're hand-rolled pearls of green tea leaves, so they slowly unfold as they are steeped in the hot water. So again, you're going to use the 175 degree water, so not quite boiling, but for this you're only going to use 1 teaspoon of tea per 8 ounces of water. And this is just a basic green tea, but it's naturally scented with jasmine blossoms. So these are some of the youngest green tea leaves, and they're scented 6 to 8 times with blossoms of fresh jasmine. It's very fragrant and sweet. 3 leaves are taken and hand rolled into these little balls, and they produce a sweet floral flavor. So I'm going to pour some of this. Again, I've just steeped some of this in a teapot for you, and I will pour the rest of it into a mug so that it won't oversteep while we're tasting. The flowery taste is very nice, but it is just a mild green tea. I think green tea has such a fresh flavor on its own that I often like it just plain without being mixed with any berries or other types of tea. It's often my favorite first thing in the morning tea. And again, it's nice and light, so it's not too heavy in the morning, but it gives you a little bit of a boost to wake you up, but you're not starting off with a big dose of caffeine. I'm not a big fan of caffeine, though I use it a little bit. I tend to prefer these lighter, slightly caffeinated teas. And now we're going to have an interesting black tea. Black teas are strong, and they're good alone or with milk and sugar. They make great iced teas. They do provide more caffeine, but not quite as much as coffee. They're energy boosting, and they may promote heart health. They also may help maintain healthy cardiovascular and circulatory system, and they contain 20% of the caffeine in a cup of coffee. So we're going to try something a little bit different than your standard Earl Grey or English breakfast, just to have something a little bit different. So what we're going to try today is the Golden Monkey black tea. This is a lovely looking tea too, with the leaves brown and black. And in order to make a black tea, you're going to use 1 teaspoon of tea per 8 ounces, so a little less than you would for an herbal or a white tea. And you are going to heat the water to 195 to 205 degrees. So it will be boiling, but you're only going to steep it for 2 to 3 minutes. Black tea can get bitter, so you want to make sure that it doesn't oversteep. And again, this is some of the finest black tea, and it's from the Fujian province. It was actually recently served at the White House to the President of the United States and the President of China. It's a smooth tea, rich with complex cocoa undertones, and manages to be extremely low in tannins, yet rich in flavor, so it should be flavorful but not bitter. This type of tea originated in the Song dynasty. Its imperial tribute features golden tipped black leaves consisting of 1 leaf and 1 bud. So I just poured some hot water in, let it steep while we were talking, so you can taste that. And again, I'm going to pour the rest of the steeped tea into a glass so that it won't oversteep. For people who say they don't like tea because it's bitter, it's often because Americans don't always drink a lot of tea. So when they do have tea, they often oversteep it. And they'll put a tea bag into a mug and let it sit there until the water cools. And if you're only supposed to be brewing something for 2 to 3 minutes, it's obviously being steeped too much if a tea bag is just sitting in the cup of tea. And we're going to end with a really bold tea that's becoming more popular in America, in the US, but is new to a lot of people. It's one of my favorite teas because I lived in Chile for a while and stayed with an indigenous family where we would pass around a gourd of mate most evenings. And I do have my silver mate straw from that time, along with a gourd, to drink out of. And although we don't make mate like that, I do still sometimes like to use my straw, just because it's fun to use. It's a long silver straw, and on the end is a sieve, so that you can drink through the straw and you won't get the tea leaves. In Chile, we would fill a gourd almost halfway full with mate leaves and a lot of sugar, and we would pour boiling water in there and pass the mate gourd around the circle, and everyone would drink it. It would generally go to the elder family members first, out of respect, but they would also joke with me that it was because the first round is often very bitter, and it takes getting used to. So they would take the first most bitter sips, so that by the time it got to me, it had diluted a little bit, so it wasn't quite so strong. Mate is a wild shrub from Argentina. It makes a delicious, flavorful tea. Mate tea contains a stimulant similar to caffeine, although without the jitteriness or addictive tendencies. It is energizing, definitely wakes you up. It may help support appetite suppression, so it's a good tea if you're trying to diet. It's a delicious source of vitamins and minerals, and it has the same amount of caffeine as in a cup of coffee. So today we're going to try what's called My Morning Mate Tea. Again, this is a good replacement for coffee. If you want the caffeine, but you don't like coffee, it's also just a nice change if you really like that morning boost or that afternoon boost, but you want something other than coffee. So for mate, here we use 1.5 teaspoons of tea per 8 ounces of water, and you would heat water just to boiling, and steep for 5 to 6 minutes. And this will be a bold taste. It includes mate tea, some red rooibos tea, black tea, cocoa kernels, carob bits, citrus peels, chocolate pieces, almond, pistachio nuts, coriander, cactus blossom, hazelnut, sunflower petals, and then flavorings of chocolate, hazelnut, cream, coffee, caramel, almond, cinnamon, macadamia, nuts, pepper, safflower, and cornflower. So this is, as you can tell from the ingredients list, a very complex tea. It gives you a natural energy boost. It's a bit healthier than coffee because the stimulant is slightly different than caffeine and not as addictive. This is a nice sweet tea because of the cocoa and chocolate, almonds, pistachio nuts, macadamia nuts, and coriander. And it's also got some hazelnut and cinnamon. Really is a nice chocolatey, nutty tea. So I've poured some into this glass, and I'll give you the silver mate straw so you can taste that. Just place that in the cup. Have you had mate before? Yes, it is an interesting taste. This one is a nice mate to start off with if you're not used to mate, because all of the chocolatey and nutty additions make it a little bit sweeter, not as bitter as mate can be. The bitter taste can grow on you, but it's hard to get used to at first, especially if you don't drink tea very often. Tea is a lot about ritual for me. It's about the preparation, the utensils that I have. I collect teapots and teacups, and it's fun to pick out in the morning what teacup I will use, whether I really just want a big mug of tea or if I would like to use something a little bit prettier and that I'd have to refill often from my teapot. I can bring my teapot to the breakfast table with me so that I can refill often without having to go get a new teapot. Do you have one of your favorite teas that we made today? Yes? Yes, I like that one a lot too. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this private tasting. I've enjoyed spending this time with you and talking a little about a subject that I think is very relaxing and a nice addition to your day. Thank you so much for coming.